can't breathe with you, baby. I can't play your game. It's a disgrace, mama, the way you throw shade and blame. Standing here at the crossroads, it's time to tell. All right, hello everybody. Welcome to Turning Left. I am Jason Allen. Of course, with me, as always, is Sir Richard.
Hey, it's a big day in Pigville.
It is a big day in Pigville. Get ready to oink, people. Now listen, a lot of people emailed. They sent tweets. They did all the stuff. They said, "Hey, Jason, how did Sir Richard get knighted?" And so right now I'm going to throw it out there. We're gonna give up a little trade secret. Not many people know about. Okay. Sir Richard got knighted by the United Progressives of the planet Earth because he made Trumper's head explode twice. No, he really did. He literally made his head explode.
Yeah, I can't take full credit for it, but it was beautiful to see.
It is a sight to behold. Hello, everybody. Going to be a little different this time. Usually, the last few weeks, I've been kind of staring at the camera, trying to do TV land stuff, and you know what? I said this time, screw it. We're going to go back to radio format because we're going to be drilling down today, and I want to be able to sound halfway articulate, not like not like the usual talking monkey that I sound like. Yes.
Hey, that's not right. That's not true.
Yeah, we all knew it was coming. We saw the warning signs, the flashing lights saying when the skinheads and the neo-Nazis and the alt-right shows up,
crawling out of under their rocks.
Right. Something's going to happen, right? And so something did happen there in the eastern friendly confines of Charlottesville, Virginia. Of course, that is the hometown of the University of Virginia. So it's kind of like this little bastion of blue in a sea of red.
Yeah.
And, they got together. And folks, I know if you've been listening to the radio, watching TV or whatever, you kind of know that all hell broke loose, right? And as a result of one of the Nazis, and I'm going to dispense even referring to this guy as a human being from now on.
Thank you.
He's just a Nazi, and he ran his car into two other cars, which ran over 32-year-old Heather Heyer. She lost her life, 20 injured, and including two police officers who were in an observation helicopter that, for whatever reason, went down.
Right.
So the grand total is 3. And so I wanted to get the where, when, how, who, why right out there so we all know we're all on the same page. Because I really think it's important that we talk about the whys. Why did this happen? Why is this happening now? And really just what in the hell is going on, So, folks, I know that you saw the press conferences by El Trumperino yesterday, where he basically went back to his first position on Saturday, and then he took it 5 steps further, actually defending alt-right groups, white nationalists, white supremacists, Klan guys, anyone basically who's bad. Okay?
Well, and we have to stop using the term alt-right. They're just bloody Nazis.
Right.
Or fascists. But one and the same.
Right. And really, it is a direct result, folks, of this is one of those "what did you expect" moments, right?
Correct.
Here's a guy that dog whistles and he signals and to his base. He's done it all throughout his campaign. I mean, did you really think that he was going to change once he took the oath of office, right? I mean, anyone who's thinking that is either on acid or terminally stupid. Both are really, really bad places to be in.
Or brain dead. We'll give him that too.
Yeah, okay, we can go there. Sure. Why not? Brain. Yeah, that's one way you put it in. And it something that we as Americans, uniquely, I believe, because of our past history, that we all approach it from a certain angle, and some of these angles are just leftovers of the 20th century and have been socially conditioned into ourselves that this is how we look at it, when really we need to start looking at it from different angles if we are ever going to progress as a people, okay? And all of this was not helped, but it was exacerbated and metastasized by our commander-in-chief, who basically holds these views. And I'm not going to hold back. I'm going to let it all on Main Street right now. Your president is a bigot. Your president is a liar. Your president is a racist, okay? Now, people say, geez, Jason, yeah, you're just saying that because you're a lefty and yada, yada, yada.
His parents were both active KKK members. His father got arrested for being one.
Yeah, the Klan rally 27, 28 or something like that?
Somewhere around there.
Yeah. But this is where we're at. This is your president, folks. I mean, you can say I'm biased. You can say that I'm just drinking the proverbial liberal Kool-Aid all you want. But when it's on CNN, when it's on the New York Times, when it's on ABC, CBS, NBC, fill in the blank or whatever media
BBC, the German news organizations all around the world, people around the world were horrified to see what that bozo didn't say and did say.
Right. And one of the disturbing things, I mean, where do I go with this, right? There's like a billion things that disturb me Saturday through Easter.
This is the icing on the disturbed cake.
Right. Is the false equivalencies that have been popping up by, especially by Trump, and then his White House apologists all the way down to, those people on Facebook, the annoying ones that get on there, and no matter what this guy says or does, they just stream out with their, make America great, blah, 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 right?
More brain dead deplorables.
The basket is overflowing at this point.
Oh, that's an understatement.
But the disturbing thing that I found was the moral equivalency these people were trying to throw out there, and the false moral equivalency. The first one that really kind of chafed my hide was this false narrative of the alt-right and the alt-left, what he called the alt-left.
There is no alt-left. He's such a... Okay, keep going.
What he says, right? And that they're the same. This whole everyone on many sides was to blame. We need to, and that just call it for what it is.
A lie.
Exactly. And
again,
and see, that's where stuff disturbs me, because you had the anti-protesters showed up because there were Nazis there. Right? It's just like they just didn't show up because it's tourist season and they took some picnic baskets and treats and decided, hey, let's check out Charlottesville,
Right.
It's going on in Virginia this weekend. Brought to you by the Charlottesville Chamber of Commerce. But they group all together, so you're calling people, especially a young lady who lost her life.
Who were there peacefully.
Peacefully, right? Getting blamed that you just have as much blame as skinheads. And you didn't have your permit.
Blame the victim, which is a sleight of hand crap trick.
Right. It's funny and ironic, don't you think, that Trump, who's never ever had a permit in his life, is yelling about, well, those people, they didn't even have permits. They shouldn't, Well, they wouldn't have been, hey, a-hole. Oh, see how
hey, that was close. I like it.
See, I'm tempering myself.
I won't be so tempered.
Well, it is a family show.
Yeah, but, kids hear this by middle school, so.
They're watching it on TV now.
Exactly.
Right? Holy cow. But this false equivalency is on many levels. First, it's the alt and right, and then there's these the one that really chapped my eye because I'm a professed history geek, right? I majored it in college. I'm a nut for history. The false equivalencies of the slippery slope. Today it's Robert E. Lee and Thomas Stonewall Jackson. What's next, folks? What's next? Is it going to be Washington? Is it going to be Jefferson? That sort of stuff. It makes me sick, right? Here you got Robert E. Lee, who everyone venerates. He's the car of Dukes of Hazzard is the General Lee, right? And he's entered this American discourse in the American memory as some benevolent grandfather guy.
He was not,
and he was not. All right. In the end. Let's get down to just basic, folks. Agree, disagree on angles and semantics.
Factoids, real facts.
He was a general in a rebellion against the United States. They lost the war. Usually, those sort of people are not venerated. They're usually stricken off the logs of history and never mentioned again because they were traitors to the country.
Well, Grant was drunk at the time, which is why he didn't ban all of the Confederate flags.
We won't go into Grant's drunkenness now. But Stonewall, okay, folks, Stonewall Jackson, it's Stonewall Jackson. People parrot the stuff out. They have no idea who Thomas Stonewall Jackson was, right? Thomas Stonewall Jackson, just before battle, folks, he would get up in a saddle, he would raise one hand over his head because, and I quote, it evened out the tempers and evened everything out in his body. The guy was a loon. He was a good tactician, right? He was a uncompromising, he had no conscience when it came into battle. He total war, but he was a loon, okay? And they lost. He died, and we love Stonewall Jackson.
Well, my attitude is, listen, the South lost because they were losers to begin with. They could have never won. They were in a position where their economy had already fallen apart before the Civil War. So my attitude is, if you want to take those statues, which should come down, put them in a losers museum with a big title over, "You lost, you suckers. Here they are if you really want to see them." And if you want to go in and scrape and bow and all that stuff to them, that's fine. It'll cost you $25 to see them.
I don't know about that. That's kind of a long title.
Well, we could put it into an anachronism. So
right. But it goes back, and this is where, folks, we need to start drilling deep on this because I've always said America has done a crappy job about its national discourse on race. Okay, we for some, and I know, and I can't say for some reason because I know people tend to, when they see bad stuff, not confront it. They bury their heads in the sand and they say, they kick it on down the road saying, oh, of course, enough time goes by. It's all lost to history. Everything is fine now. Everything is great here. And folks, everything is not great, okay? And it all comes back to how we start viewing stuff. Like when you see people get up there and they're marching, and they've got the Confederate flags and they're always talking about the Southerns this and the Southern that and, whatever. And it bothers me because they literally have no idea the premises that the Confederacy stood for.
No, of course not. And the flag is simply a way to show that these people are racists and they're pro-slavery. So anybody carrying the Confederate flag, waving it, having it tattooed on their forehead are pro-slavery racists. They don't belong in this country.
That's right. And then you start making these false equivalencies again, folks, of putting, what's next? George Washington? Thomas Jefferson? Okay, yes. Thomas Jefferson, George Washington were highly flawed men, okay? They were men. People want to, excuse it away as, well, they were men of their time. Okay?
Yes, they were.
And they were very much so. And yes, both of them owned slaves. Yes, that is not a good thing at all. And as a society, we shouldn't forget that, right? These are lessons that we take forward to hopefully become better people.
One would only hope.
But we need to understand that at the very least, Washington and Jefferson were at least nation builders, okay? Washington, while being a highly flawed guy, these are the guys that fought the Revolution. Thomas Jefferson, holy cow, wrote pretty much
the Bill of Rights. Well, he and Madison, actually, Madison was the guy that penned it,
right.
But Jefferson really pushed it.
Right, and so of course, I have a hard time with the false equivalencies of grouping them with people like Stonewall Jackson and General
That's
Robert
because
E. Lee.
the people are ignorant.
And it bugs me. If we are ever going to get to a place where we honestly look at race and we honestly look at what our country is and who we, and more importantly, who and what we want it to be, we're never going to get there unless we face these hard truths. And let's just say we're not doing that when we have an idiot like Trump get up there and just pander to his base by demagogic and just outright lies and views and opinions that need to go back to the 20th century, and they need to be planted firmly in the ground, never to be seen again.
Right.
Okay.
It all comes down to dumb white fear that they're losing their country. Mm-hmm. Well, guess what, folks? It's already happened.
Yeah.
Whites are becoming a minority in America, and it's a good thing because maybe they'll learn a little humility and decide that, well, hey, I could always go back to where I came from, and I wish they would.
Right. But and really that all gets to me because you try to have an honest discourse with the Trumpers, and all they yell is their little simple slogans, make America great again. And we've talked about it, ad nauseum on the show. But it's like when you spit out things like "Make America Great Again," I need to ask you, what America do you want to go back to that was great? Okay, do you want to go back to the Jim Crow era? Do you want to go back to antebellum slavery? Do you want to go back to segregation? What do you want to go back to? What is this making America great thing that you would want to see happen? Because if you're happy in a white America that treats other human beings subserviently and less than human dignity, that is an America that has hopefully disappeared forever. We need to make it disappear. We need as proper stewards of this country to whack it over the head with a shovel and send it back to the 20th century.
Absolutely.
And we need to get to the heart of it and to the heart of these people who still feel that way. And in that sense, we have seen this weekend, and we've seen it many times, but we saw it on full display yesterday, the true face of Trump, right? He showed who he is, what he stands for.
Hasn't changed from what he was 15 years ago.
Right. And so everyone draws these red lines in the sand. I've done it myself. I've fallen victim to that. All the question, right? When will the Trumpers finally start falling away from this guy? What red line in the sand can this guy step over to when you finally say to yourself, I've had enough, I can't
They won't. In fact, 52% of Republicans believe that we should halt the election in 2020 and get rid of the Constitution.
That is so
52% of Republicans. These are the people who used to say all the time, better dead than red, because they were fervent anti-communists. And now look at they're happy to kiss face with Putin, who was the KGB, who was the arm of the Soviet Union.
You're right. I'm a Republican. I wrap myself in the flag. I am the patriot. I'm the patriotic party, not those pinko liberals. Hot dog, Chevrolet, apple pie. I'm proud to be an American. Him and Lee Greenwood up there doing karaoke, right? And they've sold their soul now. Whether either you're evangelical right and you sold your soul to because you at least want some sort of power, or you're a guy sitting in middle America, and I'm not going to dump on flyover country too much, but you sit there and you peg this guy as your icon and your pillar of what you want America to be now, and then you find yourself, you've tied yourself to a raving
lunatic.
Thank you. I was about ready to use the F word, and thank you they stepped in.
Hey, well, you're welcome.
But, Trump voters, I want to talk to you for a minute, man. Are you happy that this is your guy, all right? Are you happy? Is this the candidate you voted for? Is this how you feel in your heart, right? Is these the values that you hold dear? Do you agree that the credo of white supremacy? Do you agree that there should be a white nationalist nation, right? Do you agree? What is in your heart, folks? We are at this, one of the great and preeminent historians of the last 30, 40 years, Shelby Foote, asked, we are at the crossroads of our being. What do you believe? Do you want this to be a society and a country and a republic that eschews racist, bigoted outlooks? Do you want to do that? Do you want your kids to learn that in school? Do you want your grandparents to learn, have that motto? Do you want your sisters and your brothers and your cousins and your second cousins twice removed you barely see at a family reunion that you fling potato salad at, right? Is that what you want this country to be, right? This is Trump's true core heart. This is who he is, all right? People always thought that, once he got into the office, he would somehow be magically changed, that the position of presidency magically turns you into an altruistic leader that's always the shepherd of the great republic.
And once a dictator, always a dictator.
But you know what? Michelle Obama is right. The presidency doesn't change you. It reveals you.
Yes, it does.
At your heart, this is who he is, folks. At your heart, he is a racist. He's a bigot. He's a misogynist. And he is the literally mirror image of everything that is wrong in America.
Just like his father and mother, both KKK members.
Learned in the cradle. And this whole kind of philosophy now. I get it's got to be a philosophy because it's not it's not like just talking points.
It's not a philosophy. These people don't even understand the word philosophy.
Yeah, that's true.
All they understand is 30-second sound bites and a few choice phrases thrown out at them because they can't think past, some "Make America Great Again." Well, do they actually know what that means? Hell no, they don't. Because when was America great again?
Right.
I don't know. But, I think a lot of them would go back to 1850.
Yeah, the Great Compromise of 1850. Yeah. What do you want to go back to, folks? Do you want to go back to Jim Crow? Okay, who was that good for?
Did they know what Jim Crow was?
Right. Do you even know where the slogan Jim Crow comes from, all right? And you know what? I'm not going to tell you. Look it up your darn selves. Google it. That's your homework, okay? That is your homework. And the divisive nature of those on the right, blaming fake news all the time, right?
Because they can't stand the light of truth.
Yeah, you love America, but you were literally dismantling all the institutions that have checked and balanced our leaders in the past from becoming petty tyrants and Caesars,
Yep.
And meanwhile, fake news. Look at his conference on Tuesday. He was literally insulting the people, asking, "You're fake news." If you ever report it, because I don't believe you are, because you're fake news.
Hey, the guy. Every morning, the guy has a file of stuff sent to him by his staff that says, show me the people that are favorable and love me. Yeah. And that's the first thing he reads. He doesn't read the security reviews, daily security reviews that they're supposed to read. He doesn't read anything about the military updates that he's supposed to read. He doesn't read anything other than what he can stuff in his head, which is so far buried up his ass. Who knew that he could actually fit it in there?
Right. What are we, a banana republic, folks? Where, I mean, if this was the porn industry, right? The file of the feel good stories, they would be as fluffer.
Yes, definitely.
And Google that too.
Unfortunately, America is on the fast track to becoming a third world country. The rest of the world has given up on us. They don't respect us. They aren't going to do anything with us. And, welcome to having lower socioeconomic levels because that's what you're going to be hit with.
Right. And so in this whole blaming fake news and the constant muddying and the constant assault on the press and the other institutions is just, it's tearing us down, folks. It's tearing us down as a people, right? And when we get torn down to that degree, we stop referring to people that we may disagree with, and it's no longer we can agree to disagree. I understand what you're saying. It
becomes them and us.
Exactly. The core divisive nature, it turns into us and them. And then when we got a us and them, let's throw in race. All right?
Well, you want to dehumanize them because we, us, are the only real humans. The rest of them are scum.
Right. Folks, I think that as a primer, your homework until next week is I want you to go to Vice.com and I want you to sit down and watch about a 22-minute, 15-second video that they have put out. Wisely, they sent cameramen and videographers to Charlottesville. They were there during the whole thing. They sat down with many of the protagonists, the alt-right people, and asked them the questions that are on everyone's mind. Why do you believe what you believe? What are you doing? What are you trying to accomplish? What's your goals? Yada, yada, yada.
Oh, we should note that the Nazis and fascists brought weapons.
Sure. They did, and of course Trump comes back with, well, the other side, who's just as much to blame, brought weapons too. Well, listen, if you are gonna go to a rally and you're gonna go to a protest, and the people are gonna be packing guns, knives, or whatever, even people who would never think about arming themselves have to at least take a closer look at doing that because no one wants to lose their life,
right,
over this stuff. So we need to look at race head on. We need finally our national discussion and national discourse. We need to take an honest look about what it is and what it means to be an American and what the face of America looks like.
Well, mostly racists are racist because they're afraid. They are so full of fear and paranoia because someone other than what they look like in the mirror could be in a position of power that sends them over the edge. Not to mention that they haven't kept up. Most of these folks, if you ask them what a computer was or if they have the internet or any of that kind of stuff, they go, well, not really. They've been left behind economically.
Yeah.
And digitally, so they have nothing to lose.
Right. And I tried for a while after the election to understand, because there are people out there that were looking to this guy and they got sold a bill of goods. The economy in their area is crap. Their jobs are gone. This guy says he's going to bring everything back with his magic wand and make everything better. But at the heart of it, folks, when we get down to issues, core, deep, emotional issues of race, economics, as important as it is, turns into an excuse. You cannot excuse hating another man's skin color and ethnicity because you lost your jobs and they're not coming back.
Yeah, and there's a lot of jobs. I mean, the fields are rotting with fresh produce.
Yeah.
And the reason why is because Americans are too wimpy to go out and pick in the fields. They don't want those jobs. But then they don't want the immigrants who the United States brought in 40 to help do the same thing. And so food prices are going to go up because Americans will not work in the fields. So you're going to see a spike in food prices. So the people who it's going to hurt the worst, of course, are the poor who can't afford the enormous rise in prices.
Right. But economics aside, because I don't want to get things too jumbled up, because we try to use those as false equivalencies, right?
Yeah, but they aren't. They're just fact.
Exactly. And economics shouldn't have anything to do with how you view a person's skin color and their ethnicity. Let's folks, you Trumpers, let's set that aside, because that dog will not hunt.
Of course, you're expecting that they understand what economics actually is.
Well, that's true. But I want to, folks, right now I'm going to do something unheard of, something that is probably going to shock a lot of people. But I'm going to go ahead and do it because it's what I truly believe, and I want to get it out there.
Better than a cattle prod.
Right. Better than blunt force trauma. I want to thank President Trump. Yeah, you heard me right. I want to thank President Trump. I want to thank him. President Trump, you have done an invaluable national public service by what you've done over the weekend and yesterday. I want to thank you from the subcockles of my heart. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for showing who you really are. I think you have done us a great service by openly defending racist and anti-Semites and fill in the blanks. I want to thank you for being a racist. You know, you have set the issue firmly down in front of us, in front of God and everybody, right? So now that we can no longer, talk about the weather and put our heads in the sand and not get to one of the core divisive issues that we have kicked the can down through every generation. That should have been handled at the signing of the Declaration of Independence. That should have happened when we wrote the Bill of Rights. That should have happened when we put together the Constitution. We didn't. And then we had the Civil War, which was supposed to end all of that. Okay? It was supposed to preserve the Union and get rid of slavery and, as Lincoln said, a new birth of freedom.
Who was a Republican?
Who was a Republican. And then we ended Reconstruction on a really bad note because the Southerners didn't feel that they wanted to truck with all of that. We fought 2 world wars, the second one ending Nazism and National Socialism and everything that's bad in society that Hitler and his henchmen and his minions stood for. Millions of people died for that. We went through segregation in the Jim Crow era, where young African-American people, young and old, had fire hoses turned on them in the street and bitten by dogs and beaten up and bloodied. They weren't allowed to go to the same school. They weren't allowed to ride the same buses. They weren't allowed to sit down in the same diners and drink a glass of water if their skin was tan.
Or bathrooms, drinking fountains, the list goes on.
And so we need finally to recognize this as a country. We need to sit down and we need to figure out what sort of country we are going to be, and we need to take this national demon of racism and bigotry, and we need, as I said before, we need to hit it over the head with a shovel and finally send it back into the ash heap of history where it belongs for the rest of all time. We need to do this, folks. We are ending a crossroads. You've seen the divisive nature going on since this man made his entrance into politics for the stupid birther. Who in their right mind would believe that the president wasn't born in America, right? They tear him down, and they he's no longer human. He's just this foreigner who he came in here and he's trying, and people suckered in and they believed all that crap.
Small minds lead to stupidity.
Right. Which grows hate groups like the white nationalists and the alt-right movement and the Richard Spencers of the world, right? And they're no longer, folks, they're no longer wearing their white hoods. Remember in the old days, the old black and white, D.W. Griffith's Birth of a Nation, and you see all these little newsreel rallies of hooded guys marching through the streets and their lighted crosses and all that, but they're all wearing hoods, right? They didn't want you to know who they were. They wanted to work in silence. They wanted to work in the shadows. They wanted to
be terrorists.
Be terrorists, right?
Which is what they did. They were terrorists.
But folks, they're no longer doing this. They are right out there on Main Street now. They have seen the green light from our president, and they've seen the silence come from the right that gives them their cue that obviously, well, say what I believe now. I guess I can get out there and it's mainstream now, right? When it's out in the open, where they are proud of who they are and what they stand for, and in your face, right? There's no bones about it. They make no bones about this is what we believe. You will either believe it or
die.
Exactly. So, folks, we are at a national crossroads of who we are and what we believe. I hope that this crossroads won't be an armed and violent one, but it's going to be a reckoning of some sort. I hope that we have grown as a country and a society to the point where we can sit down and we can hash this over and we can come to a consensus with words and ideas and not by violence and hate. I hope we can do that. But I'll be honest with you, sir. Everything I've seen so far, I have grave doubts.
I do too, because I don't think those people know how to listen, nor do they have enough cognitive ability to see what they're doing to future generations.
And we've got to end the false narrative, right? That it's more than just race. It's economic and cultural. I had a old history professor, and I remember it's seared into my brain. I remember sitting after class and we're talking about stuff. It was the course on antebellum slavery, not the Civil War itself.
After the Civil War,
right? But it was the causes, the socioeconomic, and everything that went into the building up of that up to the Civil War, all through the the compromises, 1850, the Bleeding Kansas, all that stuff, and I told him, surely we will never, ever have to deal with this again, right? We'll never have to deal with this again. And what got seared in my head was his take on it. And he said, Jason, if you ever hear phrases like defending our culture, defending our heritage, if all of that stops becoming a fringe and moves into the mainstream, hold on to your hat. Hold on to your whatever you want, right? And what did we hear in Trump's thing on Tuesday? He got up there and he you could tell it was a stream of consciousness thought, and he was tripping over words, and he came out with the line, they're trying to change our history and they're trying to change our culture. And when I heard that, I was sitting there, and I had my 9-year-old daughter. She was sitting next to me, and she was kind of entranced by all this because she could see that I was a little
upset,
highly annoyed, And when I heard that, the antenna went up. Whoop, and that was the first thing I thought of all those years ago when a kindly, a university professor says, hey, be aware of when you start hearing this in the national discourse, look back at 1850, 1855, 1859, where we need to preserve our national heritage, our southern rights.
Well, I actually have a solution. And that's to when Mueller comes out and says, yes, Trump was guilty of collusion, he should be tried for treason and shot, along with Pence, McConnell, who is dirty also, and Ryan. Let's change the whole system of people who have sold out for greed, for fanaticism, and the fact that they're willing to sell the country down the road to make a point. So Tillerson, who is another Nazi, and DeVos, whose brother runs Blackwater, and you name it, Jeff Sessions, who's an avowed KKK member and has been a bigot for years, they should all be shot for treason. They have taken this country and turned it into something that it was not. The Bill of Rights is endangered, folks. So either you get up and do something, or you can kiss your ass goodbye, because the country you knew will not be here in 10 years if you let these monsters take hold of it and delude you with a dog and pony, smoke and mirrors show. Your children will be enslaved.
Amen. I couldn't have said it better myself. And folks, this show will end in roughly 15 minutes. Okay, you will go on with your lives. You will pick up. You will deliver your kids somewhere. You'll go shopping. You'll do whatever it is you do in your world. I will too. Sir Richard will too. Doc will too. We all will. But this isn't going away.
And I'm not going to stay quiet and watch it happen.
Exactly, folks. The most weirdest question and surreal question you can ask yourself is, how did we get to this point? And by the time you ask that and try to come up with answers, sometimes it's too late. Sometimes you can't turn back. But luckily, we have these institutions, we have these checks and these balances, and we need to have our voices heard. We need to stand up once and for all and say, this is not the America that we want to live in. This is not how to make America great again. And we need to have this discussion, and we need to do it soon, because if we continue to let demagogues and we continue to let our leaders lead us down the path of national tragedy, it's going to end that way. And I know that sounds doom and gloom, and oh my God, that's so dramatic. Come on, it ain't loud. It ain't.
It's not dramatic. It's real.
It's not that dramatic, folks. And if you think it's not dramatic, or you think that Trump's right and all this, and you think that surely we're not where we are, what you're saying right now, Jason, you're full of it. Go watch the images from Charlottesville. Watch them. Sit down and watch that video on Vice.com. Sit down and watch that. Go to Google. Google in Charlottesville riot photographs. And I want you to sit there, and I want you to really, to let it seep into your bones. I want it tattooed on your brain, because this is what we need to. This is what we need to come to grips with as a country.
And something you can do, if you really want to, you can fight back economically. So any company that employs Nazis, any Chick-fil-A, don't go there, don't buy their stuff, put them out of business. Teach them a lesson they can't forget. Because money and business, they are friends until somebody says you're out of business.
That's right. Don't be a putz.
That's right.
I'm using that as a segue.
I like it.
You like the segue?
Yeah.
Which brings us to the putz of the week, Sir Richard. Geez, do we know who the putz of the week is this week?
Oh, hey, it's probably pretty obvious. This week's world's greatest putz of the century, not of the year. Century goes to the undisputed moron of all time, Don the Con. Both parents were KKK members. He allows a fascist white supremacist newspaper, Breitbart, to be published from the White House, for God's sake. This is, and he's surrounded himself by fascists and Nazis. They're his cabinet heads. Don the Con is a pig, racist, bigoted Nazi that needs to be brought up on charges, and all his assets around the world, along with the assets of all the folks who got nailed for collusion, frozen, so they have to be poor people for the rest of their lives. And maybe they'll get a sense of what the poor really have to go through, because now people only want to spit on them. One of the other things I noticed, that the United States was one of 3 members in the United Nations to vote against a UN resolution condemning the glorification of Nazism. The resolution was entitled Combating Glorification of Nazism, Neo-Nazism, and Other Practices that Combine to fuel contemporary forms of racism, racial discrimination, xenophobia, and related intolerance. All the rest of the countries in the world voted in favor of this. The United States did not.
That is a shame. Wow.
Shows you where we are, folks.
Yeah. In the UN, you have these UN memories, the Adlai Stevenson, during the Cuban Missile Crisis, standing up to the Russians,
Right.
Do not wait for the translation, you tell me now, and you see the work that the UN has done, and to know that the U.S., the paragons of all that is right with the world, right, with this great national experiment of justice and equality and everything good, to stand up and basically turn their back on that.
Well, if people can't be moved by anything other than their own children or grandchildren, think of it this way. By the time your children are adults, the air will not be breathable, the water will not be drinkable, the land will be polluted beyond belief because they're taking away every safeguard in the environment possible. Right. They're also disrupting the banking system by taking away all the checks and balances. So if you thought the bubble of 2008 was bad and you lost your home, it's going to be worse the next time around because the banks are going to be doing the same thing. They are ruled by none other than greed. Greed is it. It's not shareholders, folks, because shareholders can vote to say, I don't want that. But the greed-driven people who own a lot of the stock, that's the insurance companies, and major state pension funds, they're the ones. So if you want to do something, get your state pension fund to disavow any company that ends up supporting all this crap and tell them that they're going to be out of business if they don't decide to figure out what's right and what's wrong. Even the Manufacturing Council has withered away because people couldn't believe that he was such an idiot.
I could sit there and I could listen to you for hours. It's great. It's
and
great.
I'm not half as angry as I feel inside.
Right? Yeah. This was one of the few times when we, since we started the show here, that I've actually had to literally temper myself from go back, step away from the ledge, from just flinging out some vitriolic four-letter words.
Yes, but you know what? Our president does it. Why shouldn't everybody else?
Yeah.
And he's not my president either. He's a dumb shit.
Well, instead of fake news, I propose that he's a fake president. But we'll move on.
Okay.
This week, folks, we're running a little bit behind the time, so I want to do the cause of the week. I want to get it out there. This is a very special cause of the week this week because it hits very, very close to home. There is a local singer, a local mother, a local songwriter, a local artist. Her name is Christine Whitfield. She is a lead singer of the band Sugar Teas. Over the past 5 years on another show, I got to know her and her family very, very well. She has stage 4 cancer. She's had it for at least 5 years. I got the word this last week that there was a GoFundMe page set up, and the ominous title of that is One Last Wish, so you can see where this is going. She has been a fighter. She's been a warrior. She has been had more grace than I ever would in that situation, and she's handled it all like an angel. So we've a friend has set up a GoFundMe page, and before the end comes, she would like to visit her family one last time. Unfortunately, medical expenses, and as you can imagine, stage 4 cancer are, they're debilitating. And so I think we've gotten that set up on the screen here, coming up here. I that we can show you it is. There it is. Let's have that pop up. There's Christine. And folks, whether it be $1, whether it be $2, or whatever, I usually, when we do Cause of the Weeks, we usually do, it's usually a nonprofit, or it's a
organization,
or it's a charity of some sort. Every cent, in this case, literally every penny that you decide you want to do goes directly to her for her last, I guess, hurrah, so to speak. And she is a simply amazing woman, and I can't say enough good things. And I don't want to start going down that road, especially on the air, because no one wants to see a fat bald man weep. It's not photogenic, folks. So you can the link is up on the Turning Left page right now for the GoFundMe, and we can pop that up on the screen again real quick. And I entreat you to give what you can and have this wonderful, amazing lady have her one last wish.
Great idea.
So do it to it now, folks. And last thing we're going to talk about tonight is the Turning Left book endorsement. And I wanted to, and I had to really cram it real quick because I want to make sure they at least read what I'm about ready to espouse, right? This book's, and it's quite appropriate to what we've been talking about today. It is written by just a fantastic, insanely smart instructor out of Emory University. Her name is Carol Anderson, and she's written this book. It's called White Rage: The Unknown Truth of Our Racial Divide. Okay. From the Civil War to our combustible present, acclaimed historian Carol Anderson reframes our continuing conversation about race, chronicling the powerful forces opposed to black progress in America. As Ferguson, Missouri erupted in August 2014, the media commentators across the ideological spectrum referred to the angry response of African Americans as black rage. Historian Carol Anderson wrote a remarkable op-ed in the Washington Post suggesting that this was, instead, white rage at work. With so much attention on the flame, she argued, everyone has ignored the kindling. In other words, how they got there. Carefully linking historical flashpoints when social progress for African Americans was countered by the deliberate and cleverly crafted opposition, Anderson pulls back the veil that has long covered actions made in the name of protecting democracy, fiscal responsibility, and protection against fraud, rendering visible the long lineage of white rage, compelling and dramatic in the unimpeachable history it relates. White rage will add an important new dimension to the national conversation about race and work. It is a wonderful book. She is a fantastic writer. And folks, I highly, highly, highly endorse White Rage: The Unspoken Truth of Our Racial Divide. You can get it at Amazon, any major bookstore, anything like that. Hey, you're on vacation, you're sitting around, you don't want to read comic books, right? Get out there and read actually something you can learn something from, right? So there you go.
And I just have to get people to realize this is no joke. This is not going away. It's going to take you getting off your ass and doing something, because it's your children and your grandchildren. They will suffer for what you did not do. Get out there. Resistance is never futile. Enough people get out there. Take your country back to the path it was on. One where there were inclusiveness, growth, and economic prosperity for all. Didn't matter on what color you were.
Right.
If you don't get out there, your children and grandchildren will revile you for doing nothing.
Yeah, and if you think that this is just a one-shot thing, folks, if you think Charlottesville is a standalone thing, it's surely, surely now that this ugliness has reared its head, we will, bend the knee to our, the angels of our better nature. You're surely mistaken.
No, it's going to happen again and again and again. It's going to get bigger and uglier.
It is. Already, the alt-right movement and Richard Spencer and his cronies, David Duke and his cronies, already they have announced that there are going to be rallies held in such cities as Boston, San Francisco, Berkeley, Los Angeles. They're even going to go. They're going to go to Chicago, and I can see how that's going to go down.
Not very well.
And there's also it's almost like it's an unholy North American tour, right?
It's war.
Atlanta, Charleston, Miami. So this stuff is coming to your town, folks. What you thought that was far away. This show comes out of Portland, Oregon, right? And so when you see stuff in Charlottesville, you see stuff that's going on the other side of the country. Surely this ain't going to happen where we are. Surely this is just somebody else's mess. Folks, it's coming to your city, whether you like it or not.
It's war, folks. You better get used to that. It is war.
And it all comes down to, are you going to stand silent while all this occurs? Because any silence to these sort of people who propagate hate and white nationalism and white superiority and all, whatever that crap is, they take silence as collusion. They take
Absolutely.
They take silence as a green light. Well, see, they're not saying nothing, so obviously it must be okay. You saw that on full display the second Trump shut his pie hole and said basically defended these people. David Duke gets on there and tweets, thank you, Mr. Trump, for sharing the truth, about Charlottesville. And so if you think that this isn't going to come rear its head, you're sadly mistaken. I mean, these people think it's a green light. They think it's a cue. They think it's, an open invitation to spread their disease. And I don't use this real lightly, and I kind of step away from hyperbole of this, but it's a cancer.
Yes, and folks, you better arm yourself, because they already are. And I've been seriously considering, being a pacifist all my life, of going out and buying a pump-action shotgun with as much ammo as I possibly can, because nobody is going to hurt my children or my family, or are they going to tread on my property?
Right.
So I'm planning to become an armed person who will not go lightly.
Right. And folks, if you don't want it to get to that point and you want to try to turn this around now, I truly, yes, this has been kind of a cynical show today, but I truly believe that if we all stand up, we can turn it around. If you don't want to arm yourself, at least arm yourself with knowledge. Get out there and start paying attention to this stuff. Start reading these books. Start talking to your neighbors.
Just watch the TV news and watch what they do.
Right. Start attending civic and your local civic meetings. Start taking a more active role in your life and an active role in society. And that's how, seriously, folks, that's how we move mountains, okay? That is how we can change stuff. We, as Americans, we have done it before. If you want us to leave you on a good note, right, you want at least a shred of optimism, I'm going to leave you with this. If we can all stand up, me too, right? Me too, Sir Charles, Doc, everybody, if we can all stand up and say enough. If we all stand up and we cast aside all the division, we cast aside all the hate, we cast aside all the bigotry, we can truly move mountains. We've done it before. America is an exceptional place. At heart, the best of America is unequaled in the world. We can do it.
And you cannot pray this away, folks. You have to get out there and do things.
Right. And on that note, you can't pray it away, but you can do as Saint Paul said. Strap your actions along with your prayers and fight the good fight. And so, from all of us here at the NuzBox Studios here in beautiful Portland, Oregon, the city of roses, I want to wish you all a great rest of the week. And barring a national catastrophe or me coming down with a sudden case of leprosy, we will be here next week ready to go. And I'm working on some guests, and they're going to blow your mind, and it's going to be good. And so hopefully we'll have some surprises starting next week, and I think it's going to be pretty cool.
Great. And share what you've heard on the show with all your friends and neighbors. Get them to dial in, because the more people who listen to this and finally wake up, the better.
You know what? You've done. Listen, I am the worst networker in history, and do exactly what Sir Richard said. If you like the show at all, get on there, share it on your Facebook, share it on your social media, share it on your the online groups you may belong to. Email us, turningleftradio@gmail.com. You can get a hold of us that way, or you can find us on Twitter. We're there at TurningLeftPDX. You get on there, give us a question, give us a comment, and help us send a message. Right? Simple as that. So see you next week.
Bye-bye.